What does velocity mean to you?
I think of velocity as the rate at which you improve member experience.
From my conversations with nearly every full-time team member at Levels, it became clear that velocity and scrappiness was at the center of every project within the company. Why? Because in startups, the speed of iteration matters a lot. And not unlike experimentation, having a scrappy attitude towards certain projects within the company allows the company to move fast. Though not everyone on the team likes the word scrappy, and you'll see that. But what is agreed upon is, regardless of how you describe velocity and scrappiness, at Levels, it certainly moves the needle forward.
Velocity is generally how you sort of tell the difference between a startup and just like a small business.
If we have the choice of spending a month on a single bet versus spending 1 day each on maybe 10 bets, we should bias towards that.
When you have that many things to do and your resources are limited, you have to try as many things as you can.
Velocity shouldn't even be what you do in a week. Velocity should be what you do in 15-minute increments in a day to get to that next phase of what you're trying to achieve.
That's a soundbite.
Every support interaction, every process doc that's written, people understand the pace at which we're moving and understand the level of detail to add to a certain project at a certain point in time, because they understand that it might look very different in 2 months from now.
How has the company evolved in the past 6 months that you've been at Levels?
Gosh, I think the thing that changes the most is that you never work on one thing. You end up doing a suite of all these things unrelated to your actual role, because the idea is to move with velocity and just do things really scrappy and really fast and learn from them.
You don't join a startup to be lazy.
Right.
You do it because you're ambitious and you know what comes with that.
But if we don't continue to increase the velocity at which we are working, whether that's engineering, content, operations, whatever, then we run the risk of not accomplishing our mission or not affecting over 1 billion people.
Let's talk about scrappiness at Levels. How is Levels scrappy?
This is a really good question. Personally, I don't love the word scrappy because it kind of historically has a bit of a negative connotation.
I was texting with Josh about this, and he doesn't like the term scrappy. In fact, I'll just pull up the message thread because it was quite funny. He doesn't like the term scrappy because the definition is disorganized, untidy, or incomplete.
If you were to Google it, it comes up as something like messiness or disorganization, kind of constantly hanging on by the skin of your teeth type of thing.
And he was using it to define SpaceX as well. And my response was that, well, how else would you describe launching grain silos into orbit? Which is basically what they're doing with Starship right now. It's like welded grain silos and shipping them to space. It's like, I would describe that as incomplete and untidy.
The scrappiness element at SpaceX is something closer to ingenuity and agility, like using out-of-the-box solutions to get to the 80% value proposition with 20% of the effort. That's what you're constantly looking to do, is be efficient.
At our stage, the consequences of shipping something that people don't like is basically zero. If we shipped a feature that was so bad that 20% of all of our users left the platform, I would say, oh, look at that. That was an interesting thing to learn. Like, let's try the next version. It really doesn't matter.
It's not just, just throwing things at the users and seeing what sticks. It's also using our resources to the best of our ability to try more.
When you ship something, when you put something out there, something magical happens. You get feedback as opposed to waiting until something's, perfectly formed.
I think also worth noting that, like on the design side, I feel like there's a bit of a yin and yang on this. Like, I greatly value scrappiness and getting something out the door as soon as possible in service of like a larger learning. Of course, on the other end, like I'm the designer, so I'm always going to want things to be a little bit more polished probably than the rest of the team.
Makes sense.
And I view that as kind of a healthy tension.
When it comes to develop or implement a project, you can do it as a dinghy or as an iceberg. You can see almost the same thing when you have a dinghy and an iceberg underwater, but below the water, the dinghy has almost nothing and the iceberg is a big chunk of ice. That means that when you are developing an iceberg, you need a lot of resources and time to develop that. But at the end, the final result could be the same as the dingy.
We're not default alive, we're default dead. Our funding is running down. We have to make the best of what we can with the limited resources that we have.
Getting in the arena and actually playing the game is so valuable, even if it's a little rough and rocky or scrappy at first.
But is there ever a situation where you're not moving quickly or you're not scrappy at levels?
One thing that we're not scrappy or high speed on is hiring. We spend a lot of time thinking about who we hire and who we bring on.
Anything related to people, process, to culture, those are the ones where we are taking a little bit slow.
I can be scrappy about experiments of trying a newsletter format, for instance. I can't really be scrappy about a 3,000 word reported piece about cancer and metabolic health. That has to be right. If that's 70% right, it's an utter failure. So I just think a lot about what scrappiness actually means on the ground, and to make sure it's not a stand-in for not putting all the effort into things that need all of the effort.
I think it's about identifying areas where we can afford to have a little bit of jank in exchange for trying stuff out and moving fast, and also identifying areas where that's like not acceptable.
Before a startup is publicly throwing, gasoline on fire, trying to grow as fast as possible, it's a very special time that allows them to make mistakes and try things, and often to try really big things.
This part is fun too, though, and I think we're in the good old days zone of levels right now, and those are great.
As we wrap up this conversation, and Jeremy, I really appreciate your time, I want to ask this question, which is, what excites you about Levels?
It's the team and the product, the mission. I can't pick one thing.
We're really just at the starting point of this next generation of biowearables. I think that we really have the potential to move the needle on a lot of major societal problems. So that's what's got me excited.
I always wanted to work in a place where you can change lives. And I think that's what we are doing here. We are changing lives.
I think compared to the metabolic crisis, COVID is just a small bump in the history. It's nothing. If there's no company like Levels doing this kind of work, then things will just get even worse.
The ability to work on a problem that affects everybody on Earth, and we know that it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and if we can have some small part of helping to create a healthier world, like literally a healthier world, and we can get to a point where we impact more than 1 billion people in the world, that is innately special.
What I think we're dealing with right now is that we're realizing that a lot of what we're doing in medicine isn't working. People are getting sicker, people are getting heavier, and lifespan is declining year after year, and our healthcare costs are going up astronomically. The way that this is going to empower people to feel more in control of their lives and their health destiny is just endlessly exciting to me.
Every once in a while, we'll get really cool long emails from someone who's been using the program for a month or two, and they'll just tell you, I've been using Levels for this long, and I went to my doctor's appointment, and I had all these positive changes in my health, and Levels is the only thing I've added into my life that has changed it all, and just that's really exciting to me.
For me, a mission-driven company has always been top of mind, whether it's been in journalism or health.
The work that I get to do here is super unique. There just aren't that many companies as committed to doing journalism as part of their mission the way that we are here.
Mike, I appreciate your time.
Did I screw it up?
No.
I'm kidding.